Hello, everyone, and good morning, and welcome to another author interview here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia. Many of you know me as the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill, and joining us today is a Wandering Scribe alumni many of you may remember from last year. Now, my guest today is an author drawn to superhero sci-fi aimed at young adult readers. He has a unique spin on coming of age stories by adding superpowers, snarky villains, and big robot fights. Focused on pure fun and adventure, he also showcases the people under the mask and, of course, spandex. He works in the Dallas area as an author, graphic designer, illustrator, and comic book aficionado. He combines these different fields of work to build interesting projects that capture humor, intrigue, and authentic emotion. His ever evolving career trajectory keeps his sense of wonder alive and his coffee cup full. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a huge round of applause to a returning guest coming back on the show, my good friend, Mr. Jon McBrine. John, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me, of course. I appreciate being back. It's exciting.
Absolutely, John. Absolutely. So, before we dive into this incredible interview, can you just share with the viewers and listeners sort of like a recap of what you've been up to since the last time you were on the show?
So, I have been putting together, it's funny behind the scenes, as an author and creator and all this,
Hmm.
there's constant pieces moving, but what you put out there, what the audience, your followers, whoever may see, they may not see every little thing that goes on. So, I feel like I've been constantly at work, but if you were to look at it, I'm like, oh man, have I done anything? But I will tell you, in the behind the scenes time and the margins of my life, I have been putting together a follow up to my books, but it's more of a companion piece. It is
Mm.
a four-part prequel anthology that tells different stories within the Eric Icarus universe. And that is all leading to the eventual third book, and that's very fun and an exciting project for me. It was a total blast to write. I'm currently formatting, editing. It's all DIY here. So as soon as I get that finalized, I will release it out and it will be an addition to the books that are presently available. And I'm very happy with how it's coming out. And I have future projects all down the pipeline. But the main thing will be this uh, prequel anthology. So I don't like being too you know, hiding, effects and stuff because I don't think my work is that precious. But I also don't like to reveal too much until I know it's ready because things may change. I may say one
Right.
thing today and be like, oh, you know what? I decided to change the title. You know what I mean? Something like that, some last minute change. So I just be on the lookout for that. I'm targeting, honestly, and as soon as possible type of release. I was telling you a little bit before we started this interview. I should have a whole lot more fanfare for my releases. I should have book tours, release parties. I'm probably shooting myself in the foot. When I release something, I just like to set it out there, set it free into the wild. So that is my most recent thing, and happy to be here talking to you about it.
Awesome, John. Well, I'm so excited to have you here to share with us this incredible journey of yours and the new projects you have ready for us. So let's actually start at our first set of questions. Now, these set of questions I like to call sort of like the behind the scenes questions for us authors. So let's start with a little icebreaker question. Are you more of a pantser or a planner when it comes to your writing?
Ultimately, a planner. Sometimes I think I plan too much, and I think it delays releases because, in my mind, I know logically, however the saying go, perfect is the enemy of good or something like that. Basically, I find myself in the trap of I know it better, but I do it anyway. I edit as I go. Every author is maybe a little different, but whenever I sit down to write a new part of a chapter or something, I will go back and reread like what I just wrote. And I feel like I would be making a lot more progress if I just open it up and just start writing. Edit later, right now, edit later, right? But as far as just pantsing versus planning, yes, for the most part, I am a planner. This most recent project that I mentioned, there's a story in there that I decided, and coincidentally, to kind of go with the opposite of what I normally do, and that is to plan for ages, make sure every little thing is right.
Mhm.
Instead, this time around for this short story, not it's a, it's more like a novella or a novelette if you want to be fancy. But I decided to just go for it and just start writing, and that was a lot of fun. I don't think it fits my normal writing routine, but it's something I'm excited to try more of. This thing where you just, actually sit down and write. What a novel idea, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, let's talk about the thing that all authors dread, which is schedules. Now, John, when you began writing your book, did you notice your schedule change in the sense of were you more of a morning person and now you're more of a night owl when it comes to writing, or is it the reverse?
Well, for me, because I have full-time commitments for my um, regular day, my day job, uh, and which also I guess I'm a designer, I'm a graphic designer, so I'm really fortunate in a lot of ways where I get to do kind of do both things I love, which is, and they're all related to art in some way. So yes, I get to do design work professionally, but I also get to be an author as well, and I get to combine all of that into the two professions. But because of the full-time commitments to not only the design work, there's also the full-time commitment to my pesky family that wants my attention,
Mhm.
and also just doing stuff like around, that. So when it comes to what time of day I like to write, the simple answer to that is whenever I can. Good grief. It's like a lot of times it'll be right before I go to bed. I almost write I know I write exclusively on my phone now, which seems
Mm.
really might seem really weird to a lot of people. They're like, "On your phone? That's just what? Is that even really writing?" The apps work just fine on the phone. I'm so used to, and I go back on an actual real bona fide computer to do the editing, but, it's almost like, I don't say it's like texting, but, the same thumb work is is involved there. So, because of I have, like, these slivers of time to actually write, it is about my app of choice, my writing app of choice, and then just let it rip. So that could mean like sporadically spurts throughout the day before I go to bed. And the editing what I wrote the previous night as I was tired is usually pretty interesting because it's
Ooh.
like, yeah, because it's like, oh, here's a typo there. I forgot how to spell apparently, or just some crazy idea for a character or a line of dialogue came out. And sometimes some really interesting things can pop up. It's like, I don't know in my fully coherent mind if I would have thought of that, but hey, it works. It's staying in the final draft. So I can tell you what I would probably like to, if I had my druthers, what I would probably be a morning guy if I could.
Nice. All right, John. All right. Now, let's turn a little bit and focus on characters. I think character creation is probably one of the most fun things when it comes to writing novels and writing short stories, anything of the creative process. Now, among your characters that you have written in your series, who is by far your favorite to really explore? And who was the one that caused you a lot of anguish in the sense of you knew who they were supposed to be, but you didn't know how to fully utilize them in the story?
So my favorite in the Eric Icarus series is the main character, Eric Icarus. His dad, David, who has POV chapters. I mean, it's for a YA audience. The main characters are the kids, but I felt it was important to include like that adult POV chapter just to kind of get a full range. And he has become my favorite because he is so self-serving and he thinks what he does is so important. So it's fun and it's a fun challenge to write a character that ultimately you are supposed to like, but also he is deeply flawed, and it creates a dynamic with his relationship with his son. So that is a lot of fun for me, not only because it's the adult character. So me as an adult and a father, I get to kind of I say I don't do self inserts, but we all base our own experiences and we all apply our experiences in some way to the characters. So David, the dad character, is the most fun I have writing. Sometimes I think the whole book series should just be about him. I don't know if anybody would care, but I would. I love it. As far as the most challenging, as far as like a character um, who I have like what I have in mind for and what the final product maybe kind of differs, I would say that probably of these characters, the main ones who in other POV chapters, I have three POV chapters for characters, would be the lead girl, JC, only because she is supposed to be kind of the opposite of Eric. She's very optimistic. She's very always looks on the bright side of life type of person. And so that can be kind of challenging, not because I'm not a happy guy, but because I have to kind of shift tonally.
Mm.
And, it's a lot of like, there's a lot of humor in these books. There's a lot of fun, but there's heavy stuff that happens too. So to stay true to her character and not just have her go full dour, full just bitter type of thing, but not be like too overly happy and happy go lucky and be like, oh, something crazy traumatic just happened. Well, that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, no, like some real stuff just went down and this character has to react appropriately, but still be in character at the same time. And that's been an interesting challenge for me.
Nice. Very, very nice. And on that topic of, not wanting the character to change too much or not have their change be too drastic, so to speak, how do you write characters that feel authentic to the story? That it makes sense for that type of character to exist and not be a caricature of themselves?
Yeah, and that comes up. I think anyone who writes a series, I have two in my series so far. There's authors who have like over 10 plus, they just keep on going at it. I think what challenge that goes with that in any number of your series, whatever stage you're at, is just the longer it goes, you have to sort of keep in mind what you said these characters are like, what they're doing. I find myself like in this prequel anthology that I was writing, JC has her like a prequel story, and I had to constantly go back to what I already wrote and be like, okay, so if she said that, then this doesn't make sense here, and I can't say that here because that hasn't happened yet, and so and also I'm like, is her character changing too much? If you were the reader, you're like, am I reading just two different characters? Are these even the same person? So consistency is a big challenge, and I really strive to make everything uh, believable in the sense that I'm not contradicting myself.
Mm.
And there's a lot of details, and I'm like, did they, this? And so it's a lot of like stuff with the characters, just really not just like a technical detail or like, oh, they did this in book one. That means they have to repeat it or do the opposite, whatever. More so than that, it's just like, are they acting the same? Are they talking the same? Or do they speak in the same cadence? And sometimes you can forget that, you know what I mean? So sometimes you just write out something because it works for the scene, but then you have to go back and be like, but would this character actually say that? So I would
Right.
say cadence consistency is probably something that comes to the top of my mind.
Absolutely. And I think you're absolutely right, especially when it comes to writing characters in a series, because you want to make sure that they are consistent throughout the entire story. You don't want to have a huge shift in character that doesn't make sense, but you also want these characters to grow with the story as the story progresses. And that just
Yes.
comes from, trial and error of, how we approach the story, how we interact with said characters. Now, this is something that was brought to my attention, which I'm very keen to ask you, John. And this is actually also a fan question, too. And this fan would like to know, which also has been brought up in previous conversations, has there ever been a moment when you're writing where you, the author, weren't telling the story, but the character was telling the story and you were just the vehicle?
Yeah, you know what? That tends to happen pretty often. Like, it will have the scene in mind. You have like your bullet points. You're like, and this scene X, Y, and Z is supposed to happen. And I'll go into it with these things in mind. I'm like, okay, what is the one event or important thing that's supposed to happen in this scene? And sometimes, and this, and sometimes when you're even with all that planning, again, big time planner, you go into a scene, you start writing it, and it's like different chemicals in your brain get activated and or stimulated. And now you're just writing out what seems just to be natural, like what these characters would do. And it's very difficult to explain. And I think that's why a lot of people are so interested in this. I don't even know how you would define it or categorize it, like a phenomenon or something, you know what I mean? Where it's just you're writing and creative energy just starts sparking and you're writing out a scene and then something out of left field or the left field of your mind comes into play and you're like, huh, I have no idea where that idea came from, but it's here. I like it. It felt natural. It's flowing. And as far as like the characters coming to life, every character has their own type of life,
Mm-hmm.
when you're going into writing. It goes back to being the consistency thing. It's sometimes the characters feel like they're helping you out. They're kind of like, you get that feeling. It's almost if they're talking to you. It's like, I wouldn't say that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I don't. I'm not like imagining them telling me, "Oh, I would not say that." But it's like this sense. It's kind of like this feeling, like this just doesn't feel right. Even though theoretically I'm in charge and I can write whatever I want, and ultimately we all do this because we enjoy it. But still, sometimes you're like, I'm just not comfortable with this, and you have to write it. So I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. You get in tune with some frequency of the universe, and for me, it's a lot of just sensing and feeling things.
Absolutely. And I definitely think there have been some moments in my own writing where I've actually had one of my characters sort of take the reins of the creative process. And it is a very interesting thing where the character is telling the story as opposed to myself, the author, thinking of how the story is supposed to be. And you actually brought this up, which actually goes into another fan question, which haven't really talked about as much. But do you have a particular scene that is your favorite across all your books?
Oh, I have a few scenes that I really like. They happen in Unsecret Origin, Eric Icker's book two. They're at the very end, the big conflict of Eric and his main villain. The reason I don't post or talk about these scenes very much is because they're pretty much spoilers for characters and what they do and how they turn out. And this is another thing where I feel like I shoot myself on the foot. I'm like, oh, this thing I'm super proud of, and I think everyone should read. I can't really tell you about it though, because it's a spoiler. And it's like, okay, so if you're left like the reader, the audience, you're just someone hearing this. I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do. I don't know. Like, what is this? But I'm like, just believe me, this is great. I assure you. but but I can't tell you because it would spoil everything. But there are a few scenes that stand out in my mind because, like I said before, I like to put humor in my books. I like to put fun stuff and adventure and all of that. But at the end, I do like to add real emotional scenes. And there was one line that Eric says towards the end of book two that I think encapsulates what the entire series is supposed to be about. And it's another thing where I'm like, it's technically a spoiler, so I don't know, man. It's like there's another side of my brain. It's like, who cares? Whatever. But there is one scene in particular. There's a lot of things I love. The villain is the most fun thing to write, but for Eric has this one line that encapsulates what the whole series is about, and that is, despite all the fun stuff, superhero action, it is at its core, and this is where it gets maybe a little sappy, maybe a little corny. It is about believing in yourself, and ugh, I can't believe I said that. It's so corny, so sappy, so corny, but at the end of the day, that is, and I don't consider myself like a really sentimental. I mean, I get maybe, but for this story, this is another example of how the story kind of took over. I'm like, well, clearly this has to mean a lot to me because this is what just came out of me writing this initial story about this kid with fantastic abilities, and he's the only one that he knows about that has this power, and yet he still feels like he's not good enough. And I hope that readers, young, old, kind of be like, basically, it's sort of like if you have like this talent that you like to do, but you don't like to show anybody, well, just go ahead and show it. You know what I mean? That's the corny part of our segment, the sentimental, sensitive side. So we can get back to our regularly scheduled program.
Absolutely, John. And on that note, we're going to take a quick break, viewers and listeners. We'll be back for the second part. So be on the lookout for part two coming very soon. And until next time, have a wonderful